Hi everyone. So let me just check if I'm live here. All right. So yes. Okay. So let's get started. So today we are going to discuss about the double fertilization. Okay. So what exactly is double fertilization? So this is basically a unique feature that you can find in angiosperms. So that is a flowering plant. Okay. So in flowering plant you can find a double fertilization where you can see one of the male gamete fusing with the female gamete, that is egg, and the other male gamete is getting fused with the two of the polar nuclei, and that's the reason we call it as a double fertilization. Okay, so this is in case of angiosperms, which is actually a flowering plants. All right, so all the flower, all the plants do not produce a flower. So there are certain plants which can produce a flower, and those are considered under the angiosperms. Okay, so before I start, let me introduce myself. I'm Vani Kari, biology educator at Unacademy. I'm an engineer with bachelor's and master's degree in biotechnology and a B.Ed degree. Also a founder of a startup where I grow microgreens by vertical farming technology. So join with us in Telegram for homework and class notes. You can join the channel Vani Kari ICSE Class 9 and 10 Biology, the Telegram channel of Unacademy ICSE and ISC both. So this link you will find in the description box. So go to the description box, click on the link and join in the channel there. Alright. Also, we'll be conducting special classes on Unacademy platform where you can learn from your favorite educator for free, because these are free classes. And the special classes are basically will be conducting free sessions, which are where we'll be covering certain percentage of topic. The plus classes are also conducted, so plus class 100% coverage of a syllabus will be done. So here in special classes, random topics are chosen for the explanation. Okay, so engage with the we'll be conducting a quiz as well, so that is a poll war. So engage with the educator via polls, clear your doubts in the live special class. Will be giving, we'll be conducting a quiz. So after the quiz is done, so we'll be sharing the leaderboard so that you can know your rank and compete with your friends. This doubt is about the question tab that you can find towards your right hand corner in special classes, where you can click on that. You have an option to attach an image, type in your question, and also send it to the educator during a live session only. So they'll be getting a notification that the learner has asked a doubt, so they'll be clearing your doubt. Okay, so now for the top special classes, you can visit the link in the description. And this is about Unacademy subscription feature. You can learn live from the comfort of your home. Unlimited access to all the courses will be there. Then top educators of India are going to take the classes in one platform, that is Unacademy platform. Regular doubt clearing session will be done, that is about after about every 3 session, the fourth session will be a doubt clearing session. So whatever doubts you have related to the topics that are previously covered, so you can clear your doubt in this doubt clearing session. Then complete syllabus will be covered, mentorship and guidance is given, study material is given, practice tests are given, live test is also given, the batch courses are given, so batch courses are those batches. So basically you have an option to go with the English batch as well as the English batch. Okay, so in that case, depending on your preference, in which category that you would like to learn in, so you can either go with the English batch or a English batch. So both the batches are there. So this one you can enroll for any of those batches. So with that, there is a daily practice section, weekly mock test series, live quizzes. Then there is daily MCQ and subjective test series are also there. So this is about the ANSAR that we have, so which is an Academy National Scholarship Admission Test, which is a offline test for IIT JEE, NEET UG class 9 and 10 across 40 cities. So basically you can find this across 40 cities. So that is by the end of June 4th and 5th. Okay. So the test is on June 4th and 5th, and the last date to register for this test is June 2nd. So what is the benefit of this one? So you can get up to 90% scholarship, which is worth rupees 150 crore for Unacademy centers and online subscription. Then top 40 rankers will stand a chance to win an iPhone. The test takers get an Unacademy t-shirt as well. So in that case, all you need to do is enroll. So the link for this enrollment you will find in the description. So go to the description. So there you will find the enrollment link. All right, and you can use the code VKIC10. So code is basically sorry, so this is Vani YT. Okay, so Vani YT is the code. So with this code you will be getting 10% discount on the subscription. So this is the code that you need to use. So that is Vani YT. Okay, so last day to register is basically June 2nd. So this is the Unacademy plus subscription pricing. So this one, like since this is the very beginning of your class 9, so you can go with the 12 months of subscription. So for 12 months it is 17,250. Okay, so in that case, so you can go with the subscription of 12 months and use the code. So this Vani White is the code, so that you need to put up here in the gift box. Okay, so there you can put up the code, that is Vani White, to get 10% discount on the subscription. I hope it is clear. So you can also get with, like if you just want to try like how exactly this works, maybe you can go with 6 months or 9 months of subscription. So if you are planning for your higher classes, so you can even go with the 24 months of subscription. So you can see there, so there is, as you go for a higher month, so the cost is getting reduced. So if you are planning for the higher month of subscription, so you can go with this. So for 24 months it is 28,750. So if you are planning for higher months, you can go with this particular option. All right, so let's get started. Now what exactly is the recognition of a compatible pollen? So this is pollination will occur. Okay, so after the pollination occurs, so there is a fertilization that has to happen. Okay, so since we are discussing about the double fertilization today, the compatible pollen grain, so that is what is compatible. So compatible meaning is the pollen grain belonging to the same species. Okay, so belonging to same species, not some other. Okay, so in that case we call this as, so this is a pollen grain. So this we are talking with respect to pollen grain which belongs to the same species, so that we call as a compatible pollen. Okay, so based on a compatibility, so a pistil can recognize and accept or reject the pollen. So if it is belonging to the same species, so now depending on, so whether it is coming from the same plant or a different plant, so that is also looked even within the same species. So depending on a condition, either that pollen is accepted or the pollen is rejected. Okay, so there is a pollen rejection that can be seen or the acceptance that can be seen. So this is completely a choice. Now chemical components of the pistil and the pollen. So what is happening? So there is a pollen, I mean sorry, this one is actually the stigma. Okay, so chemical component of the pistil and the pollen. So here you can find a pollen and this one is the stigma. So they both will interact in a chemical dialogue. So that is by producing sugar production, water production. So basically this one will start to germinate there. Okay, so in that case, only if the pollen is compatible, so if you can see that the pollen is compatible, the pistil is going to promote the further events of fertilization. So that means it allows, if it is a compatible pollen grain that is belonging to the same species, or as you all know that the plants favor the cross pollination. Okay, so always the plants, when we mention, so the plants favor cross pollination to occur. So if there is a pollen that is coming from the other plant, so that is basically a allogamy. Okay, so in that case the pollen is taken from the other plant itself, that is of the same species but not the one. So in that case what can be seen? So only if a compatible pollen is given, so in that case you can see the pistil promotes the further events of fertilization there. Alright. So now here it is mentioned events after the pollination. So what is going to happen after the pollination is seen? Just a second. Yeah. So here in this case, so events after the pollination. So once the pollen grain reaches the stigma, so pollen grains reach the stigma, okay. And what is next seen? So it is will recognize, the pistil is gonna recognize that pollen and accept that pollen. So once the acceptance is done, so pollen grain get attached to the stigma wall. So this is getting stick on to the stigma wall. Then this pollen tube grows, so by digesting the tissues of the stigma and the style. So in that case, where shall I draw? Here itself I'll just show you. Okay, so now this is a stigma. All right, so this one is a style now. So this part is actually a style. So in that case, this is all made of like made of many tissues will be there. Okay, so it is having many tissues as such. So now if the pollen has to grow, so basically the pollen grain is gonna reach. Yeah, so the pollen grain is going to reach this place, and once the recognition is done, so basically digestion of that pollen, the tissues, so you can see here the pollen tube grows, that is by digesting the tissues of the stigma and style. So that means it will start to digest the tissues from the stigma, it will start to digest the tissues from the style here, then it will continue down. Okay, so in that case basically you can see that there is a digestion of the tissues from the stigma as well as the style, and that is how you can see the growth of this pollen tube. Okay, so then what will happen? The pollen grains are going to germinate. So there is a germination. So this itself we call as a germination. So that means the pollen grain formation, I mean pollen tube formation, you can see. Okay, so germinate to produce a pollen tube. So now this is a pollen tube which you can see growing inside the stigma. So now this is the stigma and the style, and here is the pollen grain, and you can see this is basically the pollen tube starts to grow inside here. Okay, so in that case the pollen grains are going to absorb the water. So the pollen grain will absorb the water and it is going to swell up. So why do you see a swelling in there? As it is absorbing the water, so there you can see a swelling. All right, 1 second. Okay, 1 second. Yeah. Yeah, so as the pollen grains germinate to produce a pollen tube, so they will absorb the water and they'll swell. So once that is done, so what would be the condition there? So this is after. So this one I have said it a reverse actually. So this will happen, and then this is happening. Okay. So in that case, you can see the pollen tube formation. Now the contents of the pollen grain move into the pollen tube. So what is that content of a pollen grain? So let me just explain you that. Okay, so now pollen grain, when we mention, so pollen grain is actually a male gametophyte. Okay, so this is what, so this is actually male gametophyte. All right, so this male gametophyte, what it does is, so this male gametophyte will have a a vegetative cell is there. Okay, so this one is a pollen grain now, which is a male gametophyte. So here in, inside this you can find a suspended cell, so which we call as a generative cell. Okay, so this one is a generative cell having the generative nuclei. Okay, so this we can, so two of the nuclei are present there, so this we can call as a generative or nuclei, or this can even be called as a male gamete can be called for them. Okay, so these are male gametes. So now this whole cell what you see, so this is actually a tube cell. Okay, so this one is a tube cell which will have a tube nucleus. So this is what, so you can see a tube nucleus there. So that means what you can understand, so pollen grain is not a unicellular structure, so this is a multicellular. So this is one cell, here one more cell is there, so this will get divided. So basically three celled condition can also be seen, so that is more than two cells can be found when it is a three cell, or certain cases it can be two cell. So two cells, so that means more than one cell is there, so it can be a multicellular itself. Okay, so female gametophyte also the same thing, I'll just explain about that. Now this one is a male gametophyte, so that is a pollen grain which is having a tube cell, and that is having a tube nucleus. Then there is a generative cell which is having a generative nuclei. All right, so this is the condition. So entry of pollen tube into the ovule. So how exactly you can see the entry of the pollen tube into the ovule? So now hydration germination, so that is basically by taking a water, so you can see the pollen tube that will start to germinate. Then there is a pollen stigma interaction that you can see. The pollen is going to capture this one, so that means the pollen capture you can see as the stigma is here, and it is catchy, so you can see all of these pollen grains are being catch. So that is pollen adhesion. So what is adhesion? So just attachment to the surface, so that is called as a adhesion or a adsorption. Okay, so hydration germination, that is by taking in a water, so you can see this will start to germinate here. So gradually it has started to germinate, and then finally you can see a complete growth of the pollen tube that is there. Okay, so this we call as a pollen pistil interaction or a pollen stigma interaction. So this one is a stigma, so this part, and this is a transmitting tissue that you can find, and this is completely a style then. Okay, so these are the parts that you can find. So this is pollen pistil interaction. So let's have a look at this. Okay, so now entry of a pollen tube you can see, so that is into the ovule. Now into the ovule you can see the pollen tube that enters. So pollen tube enters the ovule. So this you can see as the pollen tube is going to start the enter the ovule. Then it seeks to enter through the filiform apparatus, so that you can find near the synergid cells. Okay, so I'll just explain you before I go further. So let me just explain you a female gametophyte. So that is a embryo sac. So there is a embryo sac. So this embryo sac is what? The embryo sac is actually a female gametophyte. It is. Okay. So this one is a female gametophyte. So in that case, we can see a female gametophyte there. One second. Yep. So now this part. So let me just draw this. So we can say this is a embryo sac, which is a female gametophyte. So towards the base you can find antipodal cells. So these are antipodal cells. So this end is a chalaza end. Wherever antipodal cells are there, so these cells are actually called as a chalaza. I mean antipodals. Okay, and this end is actually called as a chalaza. So in that case, this is a antipodal cell. Okay, the antipodal cells are there. Then you can find what? So you can find an egg in there. So here is this egg. So this part is actually the egg, and associated with the egg you can also find there are structures, so that is there are cells. Okay, so those cells are called as, one second. Yeah, so here nearby you can find these cells. So these cells are called as synergid. So these are synergid cells. So in that case, this is a male, I mean female gamete. So that is the egg. So this egg is there, and these two are synergid cells. So let me just label this. So this one is synergid. So synergid and egg together. So we call this as a egg apparatus. So this is basically a egg apparatus that can be found. Okay. Now in the center, what do you find? So in the center, all you find is gametes there. Okay. So these are polar nuclei. So in this case, so this one is a polar nuclei. Okay, so that is coming from each one of these ends. So this is called as a polar nuclei. So embryo sac is a female gametophyte, where you can find this structural arrangement, where you can find 7-celled condition and 8 nucleus condition. So that is why we call this embryo sac as a 7-celled 8 nucleate condition, so which is mainly called as a female gametophyte. So female gametophyte is also a multicellular structure which contains the gametes. So gamete is what? The gamete is actually the egg here. Okay, so in that case this is a embryo sac na, which is a female gametophyte. So in that case, so this one is a whole of an embryo sac. So where exactly do you find the embryo sac? So inside the ovary, so there is a ovule, and inside this ovule you find the embryo sac. Hi, Ravinder. Student don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thank you. Okay, yeah, that's right. So, okay. So, in that case, ovary is there, ovule is there, and then you can find the embryo sac. All right. So, embryo sac is there, and inside that embryo sac itself, you can find the egg. All right. So, now as the embryo sac we have discussed, so let's have a look at how exactly the arrangement of ovule is done inside this ovary. Okay, so let's see here. So I'll just explain this. So now this is a stigma. Okay, and there you can find a style. So this is a stigma style, and let's have a look at the ovary. So now inside this ovary, which is actually placed onto the thalamus. So this one is the thalamus. So let's have a look at the position of the ovule. So attached to the placenta, so you can find, so let's say here is this placenta. Okay, so attached to the placenta, what do you see? So there is a ovule arrangement. Just a second. Yeah, so there is a arrangement of ovule which is actually inverted as such. So you can see this type of structure. So this is actually the ovule which is having a tiny opening. So this opening is called as a micropyle. Okay, so there is a covering. So this is having two coverings as such. So there is a outer integument and an inner integument. So these are the coverings that you can find. So these are the partitions. So now these are called as integument. So two of them together. So one is outer, the other one is inner. So outer and inner integument you can find. Okay, so there is outer and inner integument. So this is gonna complete, like cover this whole part. So here only I have drawn till here, but this will be completing the chalazal part also. So in this case, let me just show you this way. Okay, so now this end, what is there? So this end is this opening, what is there? So this is called as the micropyle, and base of this ovule. So what is the base here? So this is the base. So this is called as a chalaza. Okay, so this one is the chalaza. Now the stalk of the ovule, which is this, so stalk is called as a funicle, And this junction what you see here, so this junction what is present between the ovule and then the stalk, so this we call as a hilum. Okay, so these are the parts. Now here as you can see the double fertilization that is occurring, so let's have a look at the embryo sac that is going to get arranged inside this. So let me just draw the embryo sac. So now inside this you will find a female gametophyte. So that female gametophyte is basically a embryo sac. So now embryo sac when we mention, so this is having the antipodal cells there. So these are antipodal cells that you can find towards the chalazal end. Okay, so always towards the chalaza end you can find antipodal cell, and towards the micropylar end you can find a egg apparatus. So egg apparatus when we mention, so it is having a egg, and two of the synergid cells are also present in there. Okay, so here let's have a look at this. So this one is basically a antipodal cell. Okay, so this is a antipodal cell that you find, and these two are synergid cells. So these two are synergid cells, having all of them having their own nuclei. Now this egg is also having its own nuclei, so that is a egg nucleus, so that is a female gamete. Now in the center what will be there, so there is a polar nucleus. So let's just label them. So these three are antipodal cell which you always find towards the chalaza. So this is the antipodal. These two are synergids. Okay, so these two are synergid. So let me just write it here. So these two are synergids, and with that, so this point is, so this is actually a egg. So egg and synergid together, so we call it as a egg apparatus. So this one is a egg apparatus. Okay, so now all of this together, so we have drawn a structure of a female gametophyte, the ovule and the ovary. So this outermost part being the ovary, this blue one is represented, so that is the ovule actually. So inside the ovule you will find the embryo sac. So this is the whole structure that you can find. Now what is going to happen for a double fertilization? So let's have a look at this. We'll take a different color. One second. So here the pollen grain is going to reach this part, that is the stigma. So now this is a pollen grain which will be a compatible, like belonging to the same species, so then only it will germinate. So it will start to digest the wall of the stigma. Then there is a growth of a pollen tube that you can see. So it will start to grow downward, that is through this particular structure, so that is the style. Okay, now what will happen, so this pollen tube will start to grow here, and it will start to enter the site. So this site is basically a micropylar opening. So now this is coming down as such. This will start to open here at this position. So now there is a pollen tube. So as the pollen tube growth occurs, so I told you in the previous one slide here, just a second. Yeah, so I explained you how exactly the male gamete looks. So that is, you can find a tube cell. Okay, so this one, okay, I'll just explain it again here itself. Okay, one second. Yeah, so now this is a pollen grain. So pollen grain is having two cells. Okay, so it can be three celled also. So suspended in the pollen grain you can find a generative cell, and this one is a tube cell. So this is a tube cell. So tube cell having the tube nucleus. So this one is what, this is tube nucleus. Okay, and generative cell is present. So this generative cell when we mention, so generative cell will have a generative nucleus. Hi Navneet, so your name is Navneet. Okay, so the best teachers are the ones that change their mind. Yes, all right. Okay, so in that case this is called as a generative cell. Okay, so now generative cell when we mention, so this is having two of the male gametes. So these are called as male gamete, or this can even be called as a sperm, or this can even be called as a generative nucleus. Okay, so this is the structure that you will find in the pollen grain. Now as you see here, the pollen grain has formed a pollen tube. So what will be coming first? So first the one that is moving out of this pollen tube is the tube nucleus. So here you can find the tube nucleus. With the tube nucleus you can also find that two of the male gametes have also come. So this is one of the male gamete, there is another male gamete. So two of the male gamete all also have reached this pollen tube. Then it will take a entry into the synergid. So one of the male gametes, so let's say this pollen tube will start to grow, and you can see that it will start to grow into the synergid. Then it is growing into the egg, and this is anyway getting degenerated. So as soon as the pollen tube grows, okay, so function of the tube nucleus is done, so it is going to degenerate. Now we have two male gametes, so that is two male nuclei. So one of the male nuclei will reach here, so that male nuclei is getting fused here with the female nuclei. Alright, the other male gamete, what you find, so here one more male gamete is there. So the other male gamete, what it will do is, so basically it is again entering. So the growth of the pollen tube you can see, so it will reach here in the central cell, so that is the polar nuclei. So one of the male gamete is coming here. So other male gamete, what is there, so that is coming here. So what do you see in this one? So there are two times of fertilization that is occurring. Okay, so why do we say it is two times occurring? So one of the male gamete is getting fused, so that is with the female gamete. Okay, so that is, this one is a zygote now. So this zygote is later on going to form the embryo. Okay, so this will form the embryo. Then what about this? So this one is a triple fusion. Okay, so this is a triple fusion. So the product of triple fusion is what? The primary endosperm nucleus produced in a primary endosperm cell, which is later on going to produce a endosperm. So there is a embryo formation, there is a endosperm formation that can be seen only because the double fertilization is occurring, and that's the reason, when the male gametes fuse with the polar nuclei and egg nuclei, so you can see double fertilization that is occurring. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So entry of pollen tube into the ovule. So it seeks to enter through the filiform apparatus. Now it will enter. So basically the pollen tube is going to enter the synergid. Then the gametes are released within the ovule. So the gametes are released within the ovule there. So how the gametes are released within the ovule? Because the pollen tube will start to grow. Okay, so as the pollen tube starts to grow, so you can see this is a pollen grain which is growing further. You can see the entry of this pollen grain. Okay, so that is not pollen grain, the pollen tube. So the main event of sexual reproduction when we mention, so that is in a flowering plant. So it is for the fertilization to occur, which will result in the exchange of gases. The angiosperms or the flowering plant show the unique feature, so that is the double fertilization itself. So this is the diagram that I had just drawn and explained you, like how exactly double fertilization occurs. So any doubt you have, you can ask. Is this clear? So this is there, and then double fertilization was actually demonstrated. So for the very first time, so this was demonstrated in lily plant. So that is Lilium motagon and Fritillary tenella. So these are basically the scientific names, and the scientists who did this discovery, like demonstration about the double fertilization, so it is a Sergei Navashchin. Okay, the double fertilization involves the two male gametes and two processes. So one of them is syngamy, so that is a fertilization. Okay, so this can also be called as a fertilization there. The other one is a triple fusion. So what is triple fusion here? two polar nuclei, okay, they will fuse with one of the male gametes. So that means you can see three of the male gametes are getting fused. So and hence the name is triple fusion. All right. So here the double fertilization. So this I already told, like what exactly is the product of fertilization. Just a second. Just a second. 1 second. So I'm just checking it. I'm just what is? No, you are not disturbing. My name is Vani. Vani. Okay. So in this case, the synergy that has been penetrated by the pollen tube to release the gamete, so that will degenerate. The diploid zygote is gonna develop into an embryo. So once the zygote is formed, so now you know this is the egg. So let's say this is the egg now, which is having the egg nucleus. Okay. Then you know as the pollen tube enters here, so you can see this pollen tube is carrying what? The pollen tube is actually carrying the male gamete as well. So through this, the male gamete is also reaching this side. So now you know we cannot call this as an egg anymore because there is a fusion that has occurred. So that is between the male and the female gamete. So both of these are in the same cell. So we can call this now as a zygote. So zygote is what? So we all start our life as a single cell. So basically single cell. Zygote is a single cell itself which is having a egg nucleus. Okay. So this one is a egg nucleus and this one is a male nucleus. So this is the product of fertilization. So this itself is called as the product of fertilization. So why it is a product of fertilization? Because this is not just an egg. So this is actually the male gamete and the female gamete together. So we call this as a zygote here. The double fertilization, the triple fusion is there. So remaining male gamete goes to the polar end that fuses with the two polar nuclei that are there. This has three haploid nuclei. So three of the haploid nuclei you can find forming the triploid primary endosperm nucleus. So you can find a primary endosperm nucleus in there. The central cell now becomes the primary endosperm cell. So later on this is the one. So triple fusion is the one which is causing the formation of the endosperm. So first what happens? First always the endosperm is formed first. Okay. So first is endosperm formed first. Okay. So endosperm is formed first. All right. So which is second? So second is basically the formation of the embryo. So what is the reason for this one? So if the endosperm is present already, so this can provide a nourishment. So this is to provide a nourishment to the developing embryo. So in that case, the endosperm is there, is the one which provides a food for the development of embryo. So in that case, the endosperm will provide a nourishment, and that's the reason the endosperm formation will occur first, and next you can see the formation of a embryo there. So any doubt? Is this all clear? So summary of the double fertilization is basically double fertilization which you can find in angiosperms. So that is the flowering plant, which is a unique feature that you can find only in flowering plants. So what exactly happens is as the pollen grain is a male gametophyte and embryo sac is the female gametophyte. Okay. So male gametophyte, when we mention, that is a pollen grain which consists of a tube cell, and then there is a generative cell. So tube cell will have a tube nucleus, generative cell will have a generative nuclei, or which we call as a male nuclei, or two male sperms are present. Okay, so these are the structural arrangement that you can find in a male gametophyte. So that is a pollen grain. Now moving on to the embryo sac. So in case of embryo sac, what is present? So that is a female gametophyte, where you can find towards the chalaza end, you can find the antipodal cell. Towards the micropylar end, you can find the egg apparatus. This egg apparatus includes, yeah, so this egg apparatus includes what? So it will include a synergid, and then there is a egg cell. All right, so both of these together we call it as a egg apparatus. And in the center, so what is present in the center is a polar nuclei, and hence the embryo sac, when we mention, so embryo sac is actually a 7-celled condition. So there are 7 cells in that, and it is 8 nucleate. Why it is 7-celled? 3 antipodal cells are there. Okay, then 2 of the synergid and 1 egg cell, so 6 are there. So wherever this polar nuclei is present in the center, so that is also considered as one cell. So on the whole, when we mention about the embryo sac, just a second, yeah, so on the whole, when we mention about the embryo sac, so embryo sac is basically 7-celled and 8 nucleate. Why not 7 nucleate? Because polar nuclei, what you find, so polar nuclei are actually two in number. So 2 of the nuclei you can find, so that is 1 extra. So because of that, the embryo sac in case of angiosperm, when we mention, it is a 7-celled condition with the 8 nucleate condition, as 2 male gametes are going to fuse at the end of the ovary. Now fusion of 1 male gamete, so what exactly happens? So as we have already seen, the male gamete is a pollen grain. So this pollen grain consists of a male gamete, and one of the male gamete is going to fuse with the egg. Okay, so that we call as a syngamy or a fertilization. So that is the normal process which we find. So that is a fertilization. So there is one more process that is occurring. So the other process is two polar nuclei. So they are getting fused with the another male gamete. So 3 of the nuclei are getting fused, and hence the name is given as a triple fusion. Okay, so why it is called as a triple fusion? Because already 2 sets of nuclei are there, and one more male gamete, one male nuclei is fusing there. So it is a triple fusion which later on will give rise to a endosperm. So basically the endosperm is formed first, then there is a formation of an embryo which is there to provide a nourishment. So fusion of one male gamete with the egg is called as a syngamy. The fusion of the other male gamete with the polar nucleus, so that we call as a triple fusion. Then this zygote, so here the product of fertilization is what? The product of fertilization is zygote. So this zygote will develop into a embryo, then this will become the seed. So this is going to become the seed. Okay, now the other one, the primary endosperm cell, so here this part, the triple fusion, so wherever that central cell is present, right, so that central cell is called as a primary endosperm cell. So this develops from the triple fusion to form the endosperm. So you can see a endosperm formation there, embryo formation there. So there is a formation of endosperm, there is a formation of embryo. So embryo is because of the syngamy, endosperm is because of the triple fusion. So these are the products of the double fertilization which is specific in angiosperm. So endosperm development precedes the embryonic development. So that is even before the embryo is developed, the endosperm is formed first so that it can provide a nourishment for the developing embryo. I hope it is all clear. Any doubt? Anything that you want me to explain, Navneet? Okay. So before I go with the next one, so that is fertilization. So we'll see some questions here. So fertilization or fusion of male and female gamete is given. Okay. So what exactly is fertilization? So it is a fusion of male and female gamete itself. So it is a true. Okay. Then product of fertilization is what? So product of fertilization is as soon as the egg receives the male nuclei, so that we call as a zygote. So which is actually a single cell itself. So that is the product of fertilization. So that is the zygote. Okay. All right, so before I end this session, so let me just see about the batches that we have. So these are for plus classes. Okay, so you can start taking up plus classes as this batch again. The Guardians batch is starting tomorrow. So the mode of delivery here is English. Okay, so now since this is the very beginning of your class 9, so what you can do is, so you can subscribe for the ICSE class 9 and get the class 10, 11 and 12 subscription absolutely free along with this one. Okay, so that you know in the meanwhile while you are preparing for class 9, when you have a time, so you can also prepare for class 10, class 11. So this is completely your choice. Okay, so in that case the PCMB is covered, so that is maths, physics, chemistry and biology are covered in this batch. And introducing community, so this notes if you need. All right, so the notes in the form of PDF, so you can join my community. So join my community, or you can also join my telegram group. Okay, so you can join my telegram channel, which I said in the very beginning. So that is Vani Kari ICSE class 9 and 10 biology. So that there you can join my telegram, or you can join my community and ask me there for this PDF. So this PDF I can send it over there on my community. So all you need to do is download the Unacademy Learners app and start using the community. All right, so never miss on any update from your favorite educator. Get session notes and practice material. Share your feedback directly with the educator via poll. So check out the link to the educator community below. So you can find the link to my community below. So all you need to do is, so once you click on that link, so basically you have to follow the a particular procedure in order to download the app, and you can, I mean, Unacademy Learner app, then you can start using that. So this is Bugs Bounty, which is an opportunity for all learners to report any inappropriate content in the video. So be the first one to report a particular issue to claim your prize. Report any inappropriate content using the form in the description. So see you all in the next session. I hope this is all clear. Any doubt? Yeah, so it is clear. Okay, so there is a unsat also. I hope Navneet is having an idea about the unsat. Yes. So you can click on bell icon to get notified. So you can type in your question. So you can click on bell icon to get notified about the session. So subscribe to our channel. So that is basically Unacademy, ICSE and ISC boards. Download the Unacademy Learners app. Okay. So PDF anyway I can send it on my community, and like and share the video. All right, so thank you all. So see you all in the next session. No, this is against the rules. Okay, so we cannot share our personal information with anyone. All right, okay then, so see you all in the next session. Bye bye everyone. Thank you so much.